Hi, welcome to Working a Multi-Product Roadmap. I'm Charles Caldwell. I lead product at Logi Analytics. So in our short time together today, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to myself and to the work that I do at Logi, and then we're going to drill in on one aspect really of working a multi-product roadmap and really just talk about as you're transitioning in from doing sort of single product roadmaps to multi-product roadmaps, some of the things that can go wrong and things to watch out for, mistakes that I've seen my customers make, folks that I've worked with, product teams, as well as some mistakes I've made along the way, and we won't name any names in the discussion today. I'll talk a little bit about some of the considerations as you're assessing a multi-product roadmap, and as well as some other considerations to keep in mind along the way that are different from single product roadmaps. So Logi Analytics, I lead product at Logi. I've been there about 11 years now. We spend our time focused on building a platform for embedding analytic content into your applications. We work with application teams who need dashboards, reports, self-service embedded into their app to delight their end users and help them remain competitive. So I spend most of my time really focused on delivering a product to software teams and product managers that is the most intuitive developer-grade embedded analytics solution. And we do spend a lot of time with our go-to-market focusing on a customer success team really dedicated to getting those customers into production and keeping their applications in production. So it's a little bit about what I do at my work in Logi. For today's session, I really wanted to start by focusing in on kind of three key aspects to what we product people do in building a great product. And really, there's a lot of things we do. And I think most of us will probably agree, while the job is very satisfying, it's also very challenging. We're asked to do a lot of very challenging things. And I wanted to hone in on kind of three key areas that will really help you, I think, kind of focus your energy as you're thinking about goals across a product portfolio. As I think about just a really simple definition of what a product is really kind of assembling a set of technologies to help a group of people solve a particular problem or reach a particular goal where they've got some roadblocks or obstacles. So in being able to do that, there are basically kind of three really hard things that we're asked to do as product people. And the first one is building the empathy to understand that group of people and the problem they're trying to solve. I mean, in the trade, we call these personas. But really what personas are about is getting a good definition of what are the set of goals that our target customers are trying to achieve, and what gets in their way. What is it that's slowing them down or preventing them from achieving those goals? And also understanding, before we sort of start prescribing a solution, understanding what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that those individuals bring to the table, and where do they actually need technology to assist them, and what are their preferences for how they work. What's the context that they're in? Are they at a patient's bedside? Are they at a desk all day behind a computer? Are they on a factory floor in a manufacturing setting? So really kind of understanding in a lot of detail this group of individuals, what their goals are, what gets in their way, and what they bring to the table as partners that we're going to help augment them with the technology, with this product to achieve those goals. It's absolutely critical to building great product. And generally, I mean, you see a lot of times where you sort of have gaps in products where it shows in usability is typically where it will show, where the capabilities are there, but the solution to the problem is too repetitive, requires too many clicks, the flow is not quite right. But that's kind of the first hard thing that we're asked to do, is to really build this empathy. And sort of once you've got that, once you've understood the problem you're solving and the people you're solving it for, the next sort of big thing you're asked to do is really understand this intersection of what's going on with technology, what are the capabilities, the state of the art in technology, and kind of where is it headed, what are the trends, and take that intersection of technology with what piece of that problem would be valuable to solve. And we've, with minimally viable product, we generally think of kind of what's the smallest, or at least what's a discrete piece of that problem that I can solve and it will still have value. And how do I balance that with the solution that my customers actually want to use that's usable? And I think of that as that's really what innovation is about. And of course, along the way, and getting kind of that balance between what technology is capable of, the definition of the right definition of the problem, and building a product that's really aligned to those personas. We also want it to be unique and competitively differentiated, and maybe have some patentable IP along the way. So there's a lot of challenges that we face in terms of innovation. But that's kind of the second hard thing we're asked to do as product people. And the third item that I sort of want to raise for today's discussion that's very hard to do is, once we've done that, we've understood the people, we've understood the problem, we've used technology to create an amazingly usable and valuable solution to that problem. Now we've got to actually get it in the hands of the users. So we've got to get people to be aware that this thing exists. We've got to get them willing to pay attention, to spend some of their valuable time to understand what the solution is. We've got to educate them, help them through a selection process, bring them through a marketing funnel and a sales cycle, get them onboarded, adopting the product, and seeing real value out of it as a business. This is that whole go-to-market aspect where we've got to build a channel to market and effectively execute on that. And my personal bias, out of the three, all of these things are hard. Out of the three, I think building that go-to-market feels like the hardest to me. And I'm not a chief marketing officer. I'm not a marketer by trade. I haven't spent my career marketing, so I don't want to say it's harder today than it ever has been before, because in a lot of ways we have tools today that we never had before. But at the same time, we definitely live in this environment where competitors bid on your company name and your product names as Google AdWords, and it can be really hard to cut through the noise and just reach the audience, much less build an effective go-to-market to actually bring them in as customers and support them over their life cycle. So the reason I raised these up is, as you think about adding multiple products into the product portfolio, or just managing a product portfolio across all of these products, you run the risk, or maybe you get the opportunity to actually think about expanding your definition of the personas you address, or expanding your channels to market. The fact that you're adding new products, you're of course already expanding your innovation. I mean, you're already bringing new technology and new problem definitions together and innovating around a new problem. And my main advice, if you want to sort of escape this session 10 minutes in and get kind of the main point and head out, I'm about to give it away right now. My main caution to you is all three of these things are hard to do. So I would try not to do more than one or two of them at a time, and I certainly wouldn't try to do all three at once. So if you're adding a new product, you're already innovating, I'd be very cautious about adding a new product and trying to go into a new channel to market and adding a bunch of personas you don't necessarily know. So really, all the advice I'm about to give you is going to be around focusing in and trying to control the number of variables that you're flexing. And you can flex all of these variables. You just want to try to flex one of them at a time as you're managing multiple products across a portfolio. Let me talk about how this can look and kind of what drives some of these things as some examples. And these are just different examples I've pulled from my experience. The first one I'll talk about, and by the way, all of these can be really good impulses, and they could be the right thing to do. You just want to make sure you're being thoughtful as you do each one of these things. But one place that I see transitions to multi-product roadmaps not always going well is when a team decides to forward or backward integrate in their market or in their problem set. And at a high level, basically what that means is you've got a product, it solves a problem, and it solves a problem inside of a larger problem space. So you might solve something like deployment automation inside of a CI/CD pipeline, as example, a continuous integration, continuous delivery pipeline. And forward backward integration would be deciding to add more capabilities in that value chain. So maybe you would backward integrate to code management, or you might forward integrate to scale testing as an example, but you're starting to own more of that value chain. I've spent about 2 decades in the analytics and BI industry. The one that I've seen over and over is database vendors get tired of trying to compete on speeds and feeds, so they decide they're going to build front-end tools on top of their databases. Or the other way around, the front-end players, data discovery, visualization libraries, get tired of being dependent upon other data stores for performance, and they decide to backwards integrate and build out a data store that integrates tightly to their front-end stuff. Could be the right thing to do. It absolutely could be. But the thing that you've got to recognize pretty immediately when you're doing that, well, one, the reason those areas of the market may not already be integrated, like as you're looking out and saying, nobody's got the full stack, we should do it, is there's probably some pretty significant friction points. If the market hasn't already naturally integrated, there are definitely going to be some friction points. So watch out for what those are. Very often, they are around the technology, because the technology solutions can be very different. So your ability to kind of understand what's feasible in that area, what's required is minimally viable, what the trends are, may be very different than the areas you're playing in. So you'll want to watch out for that. But you're adding new products, you've already decided to innovate. The other one you've got to watch out for is a completely new set of product personas that if you're honest with yourself, you have zero empathy for. You don't know these people at all. You don't know what they care about, and they're very different than the people you're used to. So if you've been working with front-end developers around visualization and embedding visualizations in JavaScript, once you meet the database people, they will be a very different tribe of people than the front-end people. And I come from that back-end database tribe of people. We are a very different tribe of people than the front-end people. So you just need to watch as you're doing a sort of any expansion across a stack or across a value proposition, to make sure that your personas haven't so significantly changed that you really don't know those users at all. And if you're going to do that, you need to make sure you recognize the level of investment that you need to put into learning that new set of users. The second one that I want to highlight is one that comes very often out of M&A activity, merger and acquisition. Which again, M&A is a magnificent way to drive roadmap strategy, particularly when you can acquire intellectual property that accelerates your roadmap. Unfortunately, the world is not a perfect place, and often with M&A, you also acquire other weird stuff, or you just acquire things that don't necessarily fit perfectly into the go-forward story. So you may acquire a company that's got some products that absolutely fit into your overall portfolio, and maybe they've got legacy products, or maybe they had a slightly different market focus. So you get some products that maybe aren't spot on that message. Really the thing to watch for here is, as you think about the value proposition of the product portfolio overall, and that is something that you want to keep in mind, is how do these products, when I put them together, how do they tell a story as a portfolio, as a suite? So each product's going to have its value proposition and the problems it solves, but together they tell a story. And fragmentation starts to occur when you're telling that story and suddenly people kind of look at it sideways and they say, but what is that? And the flag for me is, I think about the persona, not necessarily the detailed product persona, but certainly the market level buyer persona. Is I think about how I'm benefiting that the economic buyer and kind of the business buyer of my product, and I get these products that aren't quite fitting into that story. That's an area where I really need to tune into the product portfolio, and I need to understand, does that product have a place where I can pivot that into the larger story, or is that a product that I'm going to need to either manage as a legacy product, or maybe we spin it back out? And you don't have to be 100% squeaky clean, pure at all points in your life on this, but you want to watch it, because the more of those products that you get where folks kind of look at them and say, I don't understand how that fits the story, it's going to start to cause you more problems, both in terms of product management execution, but also go to market, your ability for your customers to understand which products they should be using, et cetera. So just, you want to keep an eye on that. And again, for me, the red flag is, can I tell a story about how my key buyer personas are getting benefit out of each one of these products in the portfolio? The final one is a bit of a pivot on the product portfolio fragmentation in a way, and it's very often you'll sort of have this impulse, and again, this can absolutely be the right answer, where you say, hey, look, we've got an amazing product. It solves a problem really well. And I think other people in other contexts have very similar products to this. So let's take this and let's create verticalized solutions, or let's use it to go into slightly different problem sets that look a lot like the problem we're solving. Maybe we built the absolute best project management system for development teams on the planet, and we decide that it would work great as a project management system for construction projects in the public sector, or for nonprofit program management, or something like that. Again, this kind of taking a problem that you've solved and applying it to new market segments to kind of grow your market can absolutely be the right thing to do. But the thing to recognize is you are absolutely, almost guaranteed, changing your product personas more significantly than you know. And one of the dangers here is that it's very easy to convince yourself that your personas in the market you know, and the personas in this vertical, which, again, if you're really honest with yourself, you probably don't know as well, they'll look really similar to one another. And there's nothing more dangerous than two personas that look like they're the same and are not, because they will sort of trick you into thinking you can use the same product with the same configuration and the same roadmap and the same industry trends and concerns, and satisfy the needs across different industries, different segments. And you'll be sometimes far down the path by the time that you realize regulatory concerns is just one example. Regulatory is always a good one. There's this whole set of regulatory concerns that your core personas never had and will never care about. And now you're looking at a roadmap where maybe you have to take this product and either divide it into two products, and now you are in a multi-product roadmap and didn't mean to be, because you thought you were just creating sort of, verticalized one-offs, or configurations, or, cuts or packaging of one product. And now you realize, I've got to bifurcate the roadmap. I've got to kind of segregate the products at some level into separate products if I really am going to not kind of ruin the product for the core group of my core market, my core personas, and meet the needs of these now sort of different verticals or different industries. So that's definitely one where I've seen folks kind of slip down the rabbit hole a little bit, not meaning to. They thought, hey, a few configuration changes, few label changes, and boom, we've got a verticalized solution. And in fact, that wasn't the case. As I kind of hinted about 10 minutes ago, you're hearing kind of a recurring theme, and I do tend to focus a lot on map to product persona, but there's actually, it's both the product persona and the go-to-market that I want you to keep a close eye on. And again, you're already dealing with multiple products, so you're already exercising that innovate, that item in the middle. You're already doing that. So doing two things at once, a little bit harder. Doing all three things at once is really hard. My personal bias is out of those three things, building go-to-markets is probably the hardest and most expensive. Building channels to market, getting attention, getting into a repeatable and cost-effective, that's a big one, cost-effective conversation with the market, really hard. And second to that is building empathy for personas. If we give ourselves the time, though, I think most of us product people absolutely love building empathy for personas. And the innovate thing, of course, is something we love to do. As you're expanding that product portfolio, I would just encourage you as much as possible, if you can focus on the existing personas that you know really well. And again, if you're trying to expand market, okay, but do it with some caution and very much on purpose. As much as you can keep the same personas, it's going to make your life a lot better. And I would say under no circumstances should you be trying to build new channels to market if you can at all avoid it. There are times when you need to do it, but don't sort of flippantly say, hey, we're going to build a new product so we can enter a new market. You need to examine that really closely, because you're likely then operating on all three aspects. And if that's what you intend to do, great. And good luck. So you've set yourself up for kind of the hardest version of this. Just do it with kind of eyes wide open. Okay. So you just inherited a multi-product roadmap. However, that just happened. You've acquired something, you've introduced your second product, you've come into a new job, you've got promoted, here you are. So in fact, even if you've been in the job with a multi-product roadmap for a while, I'd kind of recommend you do these things on an annual basis anyway. And all of these, I think, are going to be pretty obvious, but it's a good reminder. So the first one is each of your products should have a really clear set of goals. And those goals are in terms of financial for the business. So what is this product expected to contribute to the business? Is it a growth product? Is it a ARR retention product? Is it an add-on? Like what is the function of this product financially? Certainly in your value proposition, that's probably where the whole thing should start. What are the goals for this product in terms of the value it delivers to our market and our customer base? And how does it relate to the other products? Is this a product that should be driving high innovation? Is it a product that should be providing stability for a loyal customer base? Right? So get really clear on those goals. That clarity then should help you kind of align your resources around matching those goals. And certainly as you're thinking about those three aspects, if you've got complementary products that solve very close complementary problem sets for the same personas and channel through the same market, most of what you need to do there is innovate, right? It's good old-fashioned product management, product delivery, enable the field, get it out. And that's kind of a set of resourcing and an organization built around that. If what you're doing is taking an existing product and mapping it into a vertical, and you're doing that on purpose, you know what you're doing, eyes wide open, you might need more product management and UX resources, especially early on, and maybe product marketing resources as you're recognizing, yes, those personas look a lot like our personas in our core market, but that Caldwell guy told me they could be very different. Let's go validate that. Let's test our assumptions. Let's see what the design is. And if you need to split the product or have a significantly different build of the product to support that, you'll need the engineering resources, the development resources behind that. So the clarity on the goals will help you build an effective organization to deliver on those, even if you are trying to sort of do all three of these things at the same time. A big thing, especially as you get into sort of the 3, 4, 5, 6, a dozen products, like if you're really into the kind of beyond 2, but even with 2, you want to really focus on eliminating or reducing product overlap. And what I mean by that's really simple. If I can solve the same problem with multiple products, what's up with that? That's confusing. Why is that true? And it's going to be confusing for everybody. It's going to be confusing for you as a product leader on when to enhance which thing. It'll be confusing for your customers on when to use which product. And this can happen a lot, again, with M&A, or if you're lucky enough to be a very successful company who's been around 11 years, 20 years as a technology company. This is just going to happen due to history. You're going to have launches of products. They're going to go through their life cycle, and you'll launch the next generation of those products. And you'll have some overlap in the transition. A lot of people sort of fear this word deprecate. You shouldn't fear it. So deprecate doesn't mean you're ripping things out of people's hands. It just means, hey, we're not focusing on that set of solutions inside this product. Its sweet spot use case is X, and the next product's sweet spot use case is Y. And you try to make that as clear as possible, so your users know your customers know which product to rely on for which things, and they can feel certain about that. My big bias is really in the portfolio is trying to align the entire portfolio to solve a complementary set of problems for a single set of personas, and really kind of the ultimate goal that you may never reach, and that's okay, but the ultimate goal would be to have kind of the same set of less than a dozen, for sure, maybe less than 10 product personas across all of your products. You probably won't reach that state of perfection, especially with multiple products. That's okay. At the marketing persona level, I would say you absolutely should have the same set of personas, unless you're a behemoth like Microsoft, because you're going to need that level of focus in order to have an effective market conversation and have an effective roadmap where you can demonstrate that you're delivering a very impactful value set to a set of customers. So really sort of look across, and as you're starting to, if you find yourself introducing new buying personas or new market personas, I would just question that and really ask yourself, is this because we're going into one of those verticals, or we're trying to really expand into a new, very different market? And if the answer is not a very resounding yes from strategic level down, then I would get into alignment on a common set of personas. And as I said, if you're successful enough to be, having products that have been in the market for 10, 20, 30 years, you need to very robustly manage products based on their life cycle. Mature products that have been in the market for 10, 15 years, that have loyal customer bases who rely on them but aren't necessarily constantly actively developing on them, may not want a ton of innovation in those products. They may want stability in those products because they rely on them being there every day. Where your customers who are adopting your brand new products and participating in your beta, they want monthly releases, and that's kind of what they expect. They expect you to be driving innovation through those products. So make sure you've got a good handle, and this kind of aligns back to goals. It's one aspect of the product goal of where the product is in its overall adoption life cycle and maturity, and make sure you're managing those products in alignment with that. Just some final considerations for you as you think about managing multi-product roadmaps. The first one is that the needs of your internal stakeholders go up really fast. When you have one product, they need to think about how to sell, support, implement one product. When you have two, they actually have three things to think about: product one, product two, and then the two products together. And this just keeps getting worse. In real life, it tends not to quite be a factorial problem, but it's close. So you need to do as much as you can to simplify it for the needs of the internal stakeholders so that they can support it, sell it, implement it, market it, etc. You'll also want to keep a very close eye on how your value proposition is evolving. So if you're doing your job right, a multi-product roadmap should be 1 + 1 = 3, or 5, or something like that. You should be getting better competitive differentiation and more value, and your customers should get more value out of the fact that you have multiple products solving multiple problems for them in a synergistic way. Sales and marketing, their jobs are hard enough. You should not turn it into calculus. So again, the focus on having the same personas and watching the go-to-market carefully. Another sort of thing you need to watch as you drift into a different market segment is buying cycles can be very different. Terms in contracts, regulation, and indemnity, insurance they want you to have, certifications they want you to have. can all be very different. So you need to keep an eye on that as part of the go-to-market so that the thing doesn't become impossible to sell and support. And sort of the last piece of advice that I'll give you is that as you think about your release cadences, they don't have to be exactly the same. And synchronize is probably the wrong word on this slide. I probably should have said coordinate. You just want to make sure you're thoughtful about the cycles that you're releasing product on, including maintenance releases, big releases, minor releases, major releases, all of that, so that your customer base can ingest them, especially where you have related suites of products together, and your internal stakeholders can ingest them, and you're not kind of driving yourself and your product marketing and marketing organization nuts with taking several disassociated releases in time and trying to package them together and talk to the market about them. So I hope you enjoyed the session today. It's been great to be part of the Pendomonium virtual event, and thank you so much.